Hello everyone, this is False Mind Reads here, and today I come at you with my top 10 favorite fantasy books of all time. Now, I do need to give a special honorable mention to a book that I am just about in the middle of, and that is Steven Erikson's Toll the Hounds. This, so far, unless this little bit, this portion right here, crashes and burns, is my favorite Malazan book, full stop. Probably like my favorite novel I've ever read so far. It is just, I don't know how you can, I'm on page 702, I don't know how you can write 702 pages of straight heat like this. It baffles me. It's a baffling book in artistic merit, quality, just everything. It's amazing, but I'm not done it yet, so I can't say for sure. I'm going to make one of these videos probably every year, at least I'll try, and let's see if this ends up on next year's list. So, number 10 is Homeland by R.A. Salvatore. And I guess I will give a little bit of a caveat here. I am not new to reading, but the amount of books I've read, if you look at my bookshelves over here, most of those books haven't been read. I have my read books mostly over on the bookshelf that is beside me, that is not in the view of the camera, and so, like, when you look over there, you're like, why isn't General and Bastards, like, why isn't The Way of Kings? I have Black Company, there's a bunch of stuff over there that I have just not read, and that's why I'm doing this now, just so I can get my thoughts down as of, what day is it today? It is September 1st. September 1st, 2024. I want to get my thoughts down as a young 20-year-old man who is still working his way and enjoying reading. Working his way through books, enjoying reading. And so number 10 is Homeland by R.A. Salvatore. I have a dedicated review up on this video, or this book already. It explains why I love it more thoroughly than I can go into here, but essentially I am a big D&D fan, and this scratched a big old D&D itch I've been needing. It answered so many questions, it gave me so much to think about, not only for a novel, but as also, like, as a game for D&D. It just helped me immensely, and that's why it is my number 10. It's also a great novel, let me tell you, but it's more so for what it means to me in a Dungeons and Dragons sense, why it's here. And these will be like personal enjoyment. I do like really good books, but there's a difference between reading Bram Stoker's Dracula, which is amazing, versus reading something that I actually enjoy reading and pick up not because it's a classic, pick up because it's itself. Speaking of which, number 9 is The Bone Hunters by Steven Erikson. And I know a lot of other people are like, oh, well, I'm not putting more than one book by an author on these lists. I don't get that privilege because I haven't actually read all the series. I've read series. That's full stop. I've read series. That's it. And the series are long, and it takes me, I've been reading Malazan for a year, and it's amazing. These books are fantastic. Bone Hunters for me was when I hit the kind of the stopping point in my 5 massive book long tear through Malazan. The first few months I started reading it, and it landed solidly in like one of my favorite books of all time. It is split basically down the middle as a half of the finale of a big arc in the Malazan earlier books, and half as the start of basically the finale of the entire series, and it starts setting the stage for that. But as a novel, my enjoyment of it did get kind of torn down by me reading half of it one time, putting it down, and then picking it back up and reading the other half, but it's still an amazing novel. There is my favorite character, Fiddler. He's in here. I love that guy, and it also has just so many other great characters. There is Karsa, there's just so many good plot lines, and the book is just action-packed. So much happens in here. There is just a lot to love about this book that I can't really, spoilers. This is the 6th book in the series, but it's just amazing what he achieved in this book. Like, the amount of excitement he keeps through a chunky book, it's great. Number 8 is Steven Eriksson's Reaper's Gale. Now, Reaper's Gale and Toll the Hounds, right? I've already mentioned Toll the Hounds this video. Reaper's Gale and Toll the Hounds are usually the controversial ones, I find. People usually love Memories of Ice, Bone Hunters, and like Cripple God and Midnight Tides. But you can go either way on Reaper's Gale or Toll the Hounds. And I thought that Reaper's Gale, I think what I like more about Reaper's Gale more than I do Bone Hunters is the simple fact that I read this right through to the end in one go. I think if I had read Bone Hunters when I reread the whole series, because it's inevitable, I love it so much. When I reread the Bone Hunters, it'll probably be up higher. It's an amazing book, but this just it's a big journey, and it's not only a journey for characters, it's not only a journey for the reader, but it's a journey for the whole continent of Lether, where this book takes place. And it ends so poetically. This is the first time in the series where the ending to me was like, it really earned the name Conflagration. Like, book 3, yes, but this is when powers started clashing. It would be like in other books, it would be like one really powerful guy faces off against an untested kind of like, trust me, bro, he's really powerful. And so this is the first time that we really got to know both sides equally in the conflict and see it play out. It's just mesmerizing. The ending and like the character journeys throughout this novel are just gorgeous. Gorgeous, gorgeous novel. I'm floored. I was floored when I ended it. So, number 7 is Dune Messiah by Frank Herbert. Now, if Game of Thrones got me back into reading, Dune got me hooked on reading. Whereas I read Game of Thrones, that series, in like grade 9, so I was probably like 13, turning 14, and it got me, it was the first time that I was able to read an English book that properly hooked me. It was something that I picked up, and I read all the way through, and that's where my love of big books comes from. If you ever wonder, it's from Game of Thrones. And this is the opposite. This is the sequel to Dune, the original novel by Frank Herbert, which is like another honorable mention is Dune. It's an amazing book. But Messiah is what got me hooked on the series. I finished Dune and I was like, that is really good. And then I read Messiah and I cried. This is what sealed the deal on me reading the entirety of Frank Herbert's Dune series. Now I'm on Chapter House Dune. I'm going to pick it up soon. And it's been with me for a long time. I've been reading this series on and off since 2021. And this book, more than most others in the series, stuck with me. The characters of, like, especially Paul. Paul's journey in this book is insanely good. But it's stuck with me. The stuff it introduces in this book, it's like when the movie was coming out, it was hard not including stuff that it was introduced in this book in my conversations, because this book influenced me to keep going to Children and to God Emperor and to Heretics, and eventually I'll be reading Chapter House. But this is the book that sealed the deal for me, and it is my 7th favorite book ever. So, number 6 is House of Chains by Steven Erikson. Wow. This guy writes good books. This was the first Malazan book that I walked away with less complaints. So all the Malazan books since Gardens of the Moon, I think, are really good. They are at least 4 stars for me, all the way through, like, Gardens of the Moon through Memories of Ice are all at least 4 stars. This is when I finally started connecting with the characters and the themes, and I started to get my footing, and we're back in 7 cities with a very familiar cast of characters, and I started understanding. We started getting both sides equally of the conflict, just like in book 1, and it just worked. It came together to be my 2nd favorite in the series. I like Reaper's Gale, I like Bone Hunters, right? This book is special. spoiler alert, but there might be one more book by Stephen Erickson on this list. But this one is what sealed the deal. I bought the first 4 novels of Malazan, and by the time I was here, I was like, I need to read all 10. And then by the time I'm finished, I'm reading at least 17 Malazan novels, because I have the novels of the Malazan Empire, and I have First Witness, or the first of the Witness trilogy, now quadrilogy. But yeah, so this is the one that sealed the deal. It was my favorite Malazan book for an undisclosed amount of time, and yeah, I love it. It has Karsa. It introduces Karsa Orlong. Torvald Nam is a standout character who, you know, he returns, and he's a pretty good character in the book he returns in too. But this is just a really good novel. If any, like, this is another one of those that kind of is like ranks middle to low in people's rankings, and for me, it's what sealed the deal for my love of this series. All right, so number 5 is Storm of Swords by George R. R. Martin. What is there to say that hasn't already been said about A Storm of Swords by George R. R. Martin? This is possibly, like, I don't want to say objectively, but like objectively, most people who read this are going to be like, this is a phenomenal novel. This is like a well put together story. It transcends, and I hate to say this, but it transcends the fantasy genre. It is, whereas fantasy relies on the willingness of the reader being like willingness to suspend a little bit of like, if you need to world build, well, we'll let you world build. Like get it out of your system, make sure it's good world building. But this it's firing on all cylinders. Again, a really long book, but it's firing on all cylinders for basically its entire runtime. And it just, I don't know what there's to say that already hasn't been said. It's phenomenal. It's beyond phenomenal. It is amazing. And that is why it is my 5th favorite book ever. Sorry, I have like a bunch of piles of books right in front of me, and not all of them are for the list. I'll just say that. And so my 4th most favorite book ever is A Game of Thrones by George R. R. Martin. Now hold up. I will say, this book is better than this book. I think A Clash of Kings is better than this book. But if you didn't catch the little subtle thing I said earlier, this is what got me into reading. This is a decrepit, like, necro copy of the book. The cover is barely held on to this thing. Like, it's just barely held on, right? I bought this new when I was in 9th grade. It's been read, it's been reread. It's just one of my favorite books. It's so comforting. The writing style is great. I'd say it's obviously, I think it's the 3rd strongest book in the entirety of the series. And it just works. It's like a warm, like, seeing this specific copy of the book, it reminds me of so many memories, and I just love it. I can't say more than I just love this book. But there are 3 more that I love more. Top 3. My 3rd favorite book, and for a while this was my favorite, is God, Emperor of Dune by Frank Herbert. This is the best Dune book, hands down. This is also a book where basically nothing happens. It is a lot of philosophical debate between a worm and his, like, butler, basically, his servant. And that is fine by me, because Frank Herbert, he's asking the right questions. He's exploring the right topics. This book is just phenomenal. You read it. I won't say anything about you, but I read it, and I was barely bored. You know when I was bored? I was bored in the action scenes, because I came here for the philosophy, to be completely honest. That's why I like the Messiah, is because it was less about the conquering of the Empire as it was about the aftermath. And that's what interests me. I'm a character-focused reader, and this is as character-focused as a sci-fi book can get. It studies the nature of one man, and just the titular God Emperor of Dune is... It's almost beyond words. You're reaching this level of love, it's almost beyond words. Nothing more I can say than I love it to death. It's an amazing book. I will recommend, basically, I recommend that everyone, at least if you're reading Dune and you like the Dune books, read up to here. That's all I'm saying. At least get to the God Emperor, because I didn't really like Children. Children was like a little bit boring. Like, it was interesting in its execution, but its ideas were a bit lackluster comparatively to the rest of the books of the series. And in this book, just again, there's something to be said about how can you write this well for this many pages. Like, I think I can write pretty well. I can write up a good page or 2 or 3 with like a few revisions. How do you write an entire novel that good? How does anyone write an entire novel this good? Apparently you can't, because it was written by one Frank Herbert. Number 2 is Midnight Tides by I know you really can't see it, but Steven Erikson. You know when I said that House of Chains was my favorite Malazan book? That was until I finished Midnight Tides, literally the exact next book. I have my problems with Gardens of the Moon. I actually like Gardens of the Moon probably the best out of the first 3 books, because my problems were mostly misunderstanding and like, you know, the minor things, right? But I had my problems with Deadhouse Gates' pacing and with Memories of Ice's pacing, which got remedied by the character-focused nature, at least I thought, and like the handling of the characters in House of Chains. And Midnight Tides stepped up and said, oh, you like House of Chains? How about we give you that, but like in a condensed package? Even though there's more pages, it took technically 4 books to get to House of Chains. This not only introduces... It plays off one of my favorite characters, Trull Singar, one of my favorite characters in this series. It not only plays off of his appearance in book 4, but it introduces so skillfully the continent of Lether that it is by far my favorite setting in a Malazan novel that I've gotten to so far. I'm still missing 2 though. I'm still missing Sail and Jakaruku, so who knows? But so far, this book it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. I wish everyone would read this book. It is so good. Its themes of brotherhood and what it has to say about greed and money, and it's really funny too. Tehel and Bug are hilarious, and a reread of this would go insane, knowing like a lot of the plot twists and where it's going, and you know, kind of seeing the little hints, because I'm sure he dropped hints throughout here, but you know, on a first read you can't really pick all those up. Speechless. And my number 1 favorite book is, I don't want to say something entirely different, but it's entirely personal. This is where I would say that a lot of these books that I've just presented you are better novels. But this book that I'm about to present is my favorite, is False Mind Reed's favorite, is Jaden Reed's favorite, okay? Neuromancer by William Gibson. When I say part of me is still trapped in this novel, I mean it. There is, and it's getting into spoilers, but there is, no, like, I'm not going to spoil you, but like, if I explained it, right? There is a scene in this book that not only made, like, kind of changed the way I think, changed me fundamentally as a person, and how I view empathy for, like, let's say, non-human things, but also, like, it just changed me. It gave me so much more to think about with people and with non-people. And I just don't know. This is obviously, it's a revolutionary novel. It is the cyberpunk, or the foundation of cyberpunk, which is one of my favorite genres of, like, I'd say it's one of my favorite aesthetics. I haven't read a lot of cyberpunk, but it is just, how do I say this? This novel, as a novel, it's mediocre. It's mediocre as a novel. I think that there's better written stuff. There is more comprehensible cyberpunk that you can find. There's better cyberpunk that you can find. But it affected me. Reading this novel affected me in a certain way that I have not found again. It has changed me more than even, like, if I had to compare these, I would say I probably overall like Midnight Tides better than Neuromancer, but Neuromancer, that one scene, it changed me. And that's all I can say, because that's all there is to say. And now I'm left with a bunch of books on my desk and none of them to hold up. So it's time to say, please subscribe, and adieu, adio, adios, bye bye, bonjour, au revoir.